I used to believe that if I tried hard enough, if I followed the rules, if I gave my family everything they asked for, they would love me back. I believed love was something you earned with obedience, silence, and sacrifice. But one evening, over an ordinary dinner, I learned how wrong I had been. It began with a choice that should have been mine to celebrate. I had emptied my savings account, not on a vacation, not on gifts, not even on myself in the way they might have understood. I bought a house, a junk house, yes. $900 in cash for a property no one else wanted. Peeling siding, sagging roof, mold thick in the corners. But it was mine. For the first time, I had something of my own. The night I told them, I still carried that fragile pride inside me, like a candle I was trying to shield from the wind. My parents' dining room smelled of dry roast beef and cheap wine. Callista, my older sister, sat at the table, radiant as always, sipping her Pinot like a queen receiving her subjects. She was talking about her upcoming healing retreat in Sedona. $15,000 for energy resets, sound baths, and desert sunsets. My mother called it a pilgrimage. My father nodded as though she had been chosen for sainthood. When they turned to me, I thought maybe, just maybe, my news would matter too. "Rowena," Dad said. His fork paused midair, his voice carrying that low thunder he used when he expected obedience. "You said you'd be transferring the funds last week. What's the delay?" He meant the money. My money. The money I had quietly saved for years, while they treated it like a family trust to be used whenever Callista needed her next reset. I set my fork down, folded my hands, and said it as calmly as I could. "I didn't transfer the money. I bought something." The air stilled. Even the clink of silverware died. "You what?" my mother asked, blinking slowly, calculating. "I bought a house," I said. "It's a fixer-upper, but it's mine." For one heartbeat, there was silence. Then Callista let out a laugh, sharp, bright, cruel. "You bought a dump instead of helping me reset? That is so on brand for you." I felt my cheeks flush, but I kept my voice steady. "I never agreed to fund your trip. I just didn't say no out loud." That was when Mom placed her wine glass down with a click that felt louder than any shout. "You've clearly chosen poverty, Rowena. Don't expect us to support your delusions." I tried to protest, but Dad raised his hand. Final, dismissive. "You want to be on your own? Then be completely on your own." And just like that, my candle went out. The next morning, I woke up to find my name erased from the family group chat. Easter plans canceled, for me. No explanation. Just silence, the quiet kind of exile that cuts deeper than words. I drove to the house that day, with the trunk packed full of odds and ends. A fold-up chair, a box of tools I didn't know how to use, a curtain I had kept since college. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, rain streaked across the windshield, blurring the sight of my so-called future. The house was worse than the photos. Boarded-up windows, siding that peeled like sunburnt skin, a roof hunched in defeat. It looked abandoned, forgotten, unwanted. I knew exactly how it felt. I parked and sat there a moment, listening to the rain tap against the car. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exiled. Still, I forced myself out, yanked open the trunk, and carried the folding chair to the muddy gravel. The earth tugged at my boots as if trying to warn me. "Turn back, this isn't home." But I stayed. I unfolded the chair and sat, staring at the house, my chest heavy with a pressure I couldn't name. I thought about the dinner table, about the way their faces had shifted when I said I'd chosen myself for once, about the way my sister smirked, as though my independence was just another punchline. The wind picked up, tugging at the corners of my thin coat, whispering that I had no one left to run to. And maybe it was true. I stayed there until the rain soaked through, until the ache in my chest hardened into something else. Not hope, not yet, but resolve. Because this was the truth. My family hadn't just rejected my decision. They had rejected me. They always had. Buying this house didn't create the fracture. It only revealed the cracks that had been running through us for years. And sitting there in front of my $900 wreck, I finally admitted what I had been too afraid to say. The heartbreak wasn't losing them. It was realizing they were never really mine to lose. The rain-soaked silence of that first day in the junk house pressed against me like a weight, and in that silence, the memories began to stir. I hadn't asked for them. I hadn't invited them. But when you're left alone with nothing but peeling walls and your own breath echoing back at you, the past comes knocking louder than the present. I remembered being 16, standing in the living room with a lopsided birthday cake that my mother carried in with forced cheer. Bright pink frosting, mismatched candles. Callista had helped decorate it, of course. That was always how it went. Her hands in every detail, her name threaded through every celebration. The cake should have been sweet, a small kindness, but the candles spelled it wrong. Happy birthday, Rowena? One N, not two. I had been correcting teachers since grade school. I had been telling people my whole life how to spell it. But when my own family wrote it wrong, when they laughed and brushed it off, I felt myself vanish just a little more. Callista didn't get cakes with mistakes. She got keys. A Volkswagen Beetle sat in the driveway for her 16th birthday, shining and new. Dad stood beside it, grinning like she'd graduated from medical school. "You deserve this, honey," he said, pride swelling in his chest. Callista had a C average. I had straight A's. And when I asked about driving school, I got a shrug. Maybe next year. That was the start of it. Or maybe just the moment I finally saw it clearly. Christmas photos where I stood at the edge of the frame, cut off by accident. Or maybe not. Birthday cards signed "Love You Girls," with only Callista's name underlined. Family trips where somehow, there was never enough room in the car. I was 28 the year they left for Florida without me. "We didn't realize you'd wanted to come," Mom said afterward. I was their daughter. Of course I wanted to come. But they didn't ask. They didn't remember. They didn't care. At some point, you stop believing it's forgetfulness. You realize it's a choice. The junk house creaked as I moved inside that first night, as though the old beams could feel the shaking in my hands. I hung a faded blue curtain from my college years, watched it fall lopsided, and muttered to myself, "Typical." I sat down on the cracked linoleum, leaning against paint that flaked away under my shoulder, and let the weight of all those memories press into me. It wasn't just the cake. It wasn't just the car. It was the way applause never reached me. When I won the statewide essay competition, Dad told me not to gloat. When Callista was voted best hair in high school, Mom framed the certificate and hung it by the front door. When I built my life on scholarships, working 3 jobs through college, I thought maybe they would see me then. I thought maybe success would make me visible. Instead, they scolded me for being too intense, for making things bigger than they needed to be. "Let things go," Mom would say, lips pursed as though my very need for recognition was an embarrassment. But when Callista came home, crying after a breakup, they rallied around her as though the world itself had ended. I learned something dangerous in those years. I learned that love in my family was conditional. You received it when you served a purpose. You received it when you made someone else look good. And when you stopped, when you dared to take up space, they erased you, slowly, softly, like deleting a file no one used anymore. The radiator in the junk house hissed unexpectedly, startling me, snapping me back to the present. I pressed my hands flat against my knees, realizing they were trembling, not from cold, but from memory. I whispered to the empty kitchen. Maybe they didn't forget me. Maybe they chose not to see me. The words tasted bitter, but they were true. My phone buzzed then, and for one heart-stopping moment, I thought it might be another text from Mom. Another "do not come to Easter," another line of erasure. But when I looked, it was a different name on the screen. Aunt Chorus, the one person who had never quite turned her back. Her voice cracked through the speaker, soft but steady. "Hey, baby, I just wanted to check in. I saw you weren't in the group chat anymore." I laughed, a hollow sound. Digitally exiled. There was a pause. And then she said something I will never forget. "You were never the problem, Rowena. You just weren't Callista. That was your only crime." Her words hit harder than any of my father's thunderous silences, harder than my mother's clipped dismissals, because they were true, because she had named the wound I had spent my life trying to cover. I pressed my head against the cold fridge door, closing my eyes. "It still hurts," I whispered. "I know," she said softly. "I know it does. But listen to me. When they need something, they'll come back around. They always do. Just don't forget what this feels like. Don't you dare forget." And then her voice broke, not with anger, but with exhaustion. She was tired of watching it happen, tired of standing on the sidelines while I was erased. That night, I sat in the junk house with only a broken window, a rusted latch, and her words in my ears. "You weren't the problem. You just weren't Callista." For the first time, I let myself feel the ache of it fully, not as a passing sting, but as a lifelong wound. Tears stung my eyes and rolled hot against my cheeks, and I didn't stop them. Because maybe the real betrayal isn't when they push you out. Maybe the real betrayal is when you realize they were never holding you close in the first place. The days after I moved into the junk house blurred together in a gray haze. Mornings bled into nights, each hour punctuated by creaking floorboards, dripping faucets, and the echo of my own breathing. The house was quiet, but not the peaceful kind. It was the kind of quiet that reminded you how unwanted you were. I told myself the silence was better than the constant noise of disapproval I'd grown up with. But the truth is, silence can be crueler than words. Silence doesn't give you something to fight back against. Silence makes you doubt that you ever mattered at all. One evening, as the wind rattled the loose shutters outside, my phone buzzed on the cracked countertop. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Mom. For half a second, hope flickered. Maybe she had softened. Maybe she had realized she'd gone too far. Maybe, just maybe, she missed me. I swiped the screen, and the message appeared. "Do not come to Easter. No love." Mom, that was it. 3 sentences, 3 little blades. No explanation, no kindness, no hesitation. Just erasure, neatly typed. I stared at the message until my vision blurred, my thumb hovering over the delete button. Part of me wanted to erase it as quickly as she had erased me. But something stopped me. Something stubborn. Instead, I folded the phone back into my coat pocket, as if tucking away a piece of myself I no longer needed. The silence of the house thickened. I pressed my hands against my eyes, willing myself not to cry. But the tears came anyway. I had always thought anger was the worst feeling in the world. I was wrong. It was indifference. Indifference hollowed you out until even your own body felt like an abandoned house. The next morning, another buzz. This time, it wasn't a text. It was voicemail. I hesitated before pressing play. My chest already knew what my ears didn't want to hear. Her voice poured through the speaker, syrupy sweet, carefully measured to sound maternal. "Rowena, sweetheart, I've been thinking about you. Things got a little heated, sure, but you have to understand something. Callista's been under so much stress. Planning this retreat hasn't been easy. You know how sensitive she is. Sensitive." That word again. As if Callista were made of spun glass, fragile and precious, while I was drywall, expected to absorb every punch, every dent, every scrape, and still stand straight. "I just wish you'd considered how hard this year's been on her," Mom continued, her tone wrapping condescension in velvet. "Your father didn't mean what he said. 10. He was hurt. And you know, Callista really looks up to you. I think that's why she reacted so strongly. You've always been the strong one, the bigger person." There it was. The muzzle, the chain, the phrase that had been used to silence me my whole life. Be the bigger person. They never asked Callista to be the bigger person. She could scream, lie, disappear for weeks, and still come home to birthday cakes in open arms. But me, I was expected to swallow every insult, every dismissal, and turn it into grace. The voicemail ended with a final dagger. We're all just trying our best, honey. Maybe it's time to let this go. Let it go. I closed my eyes and stood perfectly still, letting the silence ring louder than her voice ever had. Let it go. The phrase looped in my mind, and I realized something sharp and final. Let it go didn't mean peace. It meant shut up. It meant accept the erasure. It meant don't ask to be seen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, I sank onto the cracked couch, my body trembling with a mixture of rage and grief. On the coffee table sat a box I hadn't unpacked yet. At the bottom, buried under notebooks and half-used pens, was a photo frame from my college graduation. I pulled it out, dust clinging to the edges, and stared at the image. Everyone was smiling. Everyone except me, hidden almost entirely behind Callista, who had held her camera in front of my face. "Don't worry," she'd said back then, laughing. "I'll edit you in." They had framed that photo. A family portrait, where I was reduced to a shoulder in the corner. A ghost. I stared at it now, at the sliver of myself visible on the edge, and a fury rose in me so sharp it burned. With a shaking hand, I flipped the frame over, grabbed a sticky note, and scrawled 4 words. "This is not me." Then I slapped it on the back of the frame and set it face down on the counter. I didn't walk away from them to punish anyone. I didn't ignore their calls out of spite. I left because the silence was killing me. The pretending. The way I had to shapeshift just to stay included. I wanted peace. A place where I didn't have to fight for the right to exist, even if that peace came in the form of a $900 wreck of a house with broken windows and mildew in the corners. That night, I opened the window as far as the broken latch would allow. The cool evening air swept through, cutting the stale heaviness. For the first time, I admitted what I had been too afraid to say out loud. My family hadn't just abandoned me. They had never truly chosen me in the first place. And if peace meant closing the door to them forever, then so be it. The junk house had begun to settle around me. Not comfortably, not warmly, but with a kind of weary tolerance, like 2 strangers learning how to share the same room. I fixed what I could with my bare hands, patching holes with duct tape, sweeping floors that never seemed clean. Every day, I told myself, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. But peace, even the fragile kind, rarely lasts. It was a week after that voicemail when the knocking started. At first, I thought it was just the wind slapping a loose shutter against the siding. 3 sharp raps, then silence. But when it came again, deliberate and loud, my chest tightened. I pulled back the tattered curtain from the front window. My heart sank. Callista. There she was, standing on my crumbling porch, as though it were a stage built just for her. Her stiletto heel tapped against the wood, in a rhythm that screamed impatience. Her coat was cream-colored cashmere, belted neatly at the waist, not a wrinkle in sight. Oversized sunglasses reflected the entire street, daring anyone to look back at her. Even standing still, she looked like she was mid-photo shoot. I didn't move. I wanted her to leave. But Callista never left until she had performed. Sure enough, she turned slightly toward the neighbor, walking her dog, and let her voice carry, loud enough for the world to hear. "Mom says she's really let herself go. But you know, some people just need their little rebellions." My throat closed. The neighbor glanced at me through the curtain, pity etched on her face. I couldn't hide any longer. I opened the door. "Well, there she is," Callista announced, stretching the word homeowner like it was a punchline. "Honestly, this neighborhood has really gone downhill. Do you get raccoons here?" I leaned against the frame, arms crossed, clinging to the last shred of dignity I had left. "Is that why you're here? To survey the wildlife?" She smirked, tilting her sunglasses down just enough to show the gleam in her eyes. "No need to be defensive, Ro. I'm just trying to check in. You dropped off the grid." "You mean after you told Mom I'd gone full swamp witch?" She laughed, brushing a perfect curl from her face. "Yeah, I figured a little distance would do me good." Her eyes darted to the peeling paint, the sagging shutters, the chipped railing. She clicked her tongue. "This place, well, it has character. I'll give you that. And mold." And a smell. Behind her, another neighbor walked by. Callista waved, voice sweetened like honey. Don't mind us, just a little family bonding. Then, as soon as the neighbor was out of earshot, her tone shifted, sharp and low. Listen, the HOA has been sniffing around. Someone mentioned this place might not be up to code. I raised an eyebrow. You reported me to the HOA. She didn't answer directly, just shrugged. I'm just saying, this area has standards. People talk. I refused to flinch. She thrived on flinching. And then, like she always did, she switched gears. One moment, weaponized condescension. The next, sugar-coated desperation. I'm in a bit of a bind, she sighed dramatically, resting one polished fingertip on the porch rail like it might stain her. A pipe burst at the spa wing. Total mess. I had to cancel 3 sound bath sessions. It's stressful. I waited, silent. So I thought maybe, just for a night or two, while they fix things, I could stay here. I can sleep anywhere, even here. Even here, like my home was a campsite, like her presence was a gift. She was stalling. I could see it in the way her eyes flickered, the way she adjusted her sunglasses even when the sun had already set. She had nowhere else to go. Something had cracked in her picture-perfect life, and she couldn't let her followers see it. Not yet. Not ever. I crossed my arms tighter. Callista, you told Mom I was unstable. You said I was mentally spiraling in a hoarder shack. Her gaze slipped away for half a second, but she recovered quickly. I was just worried, and look, you proved us wrong. You're surviving. I mean, you're still doing that blog thing, right? What do you call it? Grant whispering? I didn't bother correcting her. I just stepped aside. One night, I said, don't touch anything. Her face lit up as though I'd invited her into a castle. You're the best. Seriously, you always were. It's why people walk all over you. She swept inside, heels clicking on the rotting floorboards like she owned the place already. That was her way. Act like it belonged to her, and eventually, everyone believed it. I stayed by the door, staring at the space she'd just occupied, my chest heavy with a truth I didn't want to face. She didn't come here for me. She came here because she needed me, and need in my family had never been the same thing as love. The next morning, I woke to the sound of laughter. Not warm laughter, not the kind that made a house feel alive. No, this laughter was sharp, hollow, like a slap across the face. I pulled a sweater over my shoulders and padded toward the kitchen, my stomach sinking with every step. There she was. Callista. A ring light glowed in the corner, casting her in artificial glamour. My chipped counter had been rearranged, my stained kettle shoved aside to make space for oat milk cartons, granola bars, and a candle that wasn't mine. And in the center of it all, Callista, full face of makeup, phone in hand, smiling into the camera. Say hi to my angels, she cooed. We're here doing something really meaningful today. I wanted to show you guys where my sister, bless her heart, has been living. It's a bit of a fixer, but we love a transformation, don't we? She panned the camera across my kitchen. The cracked tiles, the mismatched chairs, the yellowing linoleum. My survival turned into her pity parade. This fridge hasn't worked since like Y2K, she joked, giving it a kick. And don't get me started on the smell. Honestly, it's giving generational trauma. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream. The comments rolled in, chimes of notifications filling the air. Oh my God, is this a shelter? One follower asked. Callista laughed. No, sweetie, it's my sister's house. I know, it's tragic. I froze in the doorway, the weight of humiliation pressing down. Then came the final blow. Another comment popped up. Is that really your sister? She looks like a squatter. Without missing a beat, Callista tilted the camera toward me, standing there in my slippers. Yep, she said brightly. That's her. Look at those slippers. It's giving Great Depression chic. Something inside me snapped. I walked forward, calm as stone, and yanked the phone off the tripod. The pop socket released with a suction sound that echoed louder than her gasp. Hey, what are you doing? She shrieked, eyes wide. I looked straight into her perfectly contoured face. You want content? Here it is. Get out, before I give them the story they actually deserve. Her breath caught, and for a moment I saw it. The mask slipping. But she recovered quickly, sliding into victim mode, her voice trembling just so. I was just trying to help. I thought people could donate or something. It was for you. You mocked me in my own home, I said, handing her the phone like it was a dead thing. You made me a joke. Get out. She sniffed dramatically, sweeping her makeup bag and purse into her arms. And as she passed by, she made sure her voice carried toward the camera, still recording in her hand. This is what I get for trying to be a good sister. The door slammed behind her. I stood in the silence, hands shaking, not from fear, but from fury, from freedom. And in that moment, I knew. They hadn't come to welcome me back. They had come to use me, again. But I wasn't the same ghost they'd erased all those years. Not anymore. The house was too quiet after she left. The kind of quiet that hummed like an open wound. I sat on the couch, arms wrapped tight around myself, staring at the place where her ring light had stood. The glow had burned itself into my vision, like a reminder I couldn't blink away. She had mocked me in my own home. She had pointed a camera at my survival and turned it into a circus act. And worst of all, she had done it smiling. I thought it couldn't get worse. I was wrong. That night, long after the light outside had faded, my phone began buzzing. At first, I ignored it. I didn't want another text, another voicemail, another thinly veiled dagger from my mother. But the notifications didn't stop. Ping after ping, like raindrops on a tin roof, building into a storm. Finally, I picked it up. And my heart stopped. The screen was full of my name. Not from my family, but from strangers. Strangers tagging me, commenting, sharing. My hands trembled as I opened Instagram. The first post that appeared froze me in place. It was a screenshot of a fundraiser, a GoFundMe campaign. Help my sister rebuild. Across the banner was my face, a photo I hadn't taken, hadn't shared. I was mid-step, carrying a garbage bag out to the curb, hair tied back, sweat streaking my brow. Another photo showed me curled up on the couch, wrapped in the old quilt Aunt Chorus had given me after the fallout. Beside it, a caption. My baby sis has been through so much. Help me give her the life she deserves. My stomach lurched. The amount raised, $18,240. The recipient, Callista Vale. Withdrawal account, her business, PayPal. My hands went numb around the phone. I couldn't breathe. She had done it again. She had taken my pain, my struggle, my quiet desperation, and sold it. She had turned me into a charity case, a prop for her endless performance. I scrolled through the comments, each one a knife. You're such a good sister, Callista. I donated $50 praying for her. The world needs more people like you. I wanted to scream at every single one of them. She's not saving me, she's robbing me. But the system didn't care. I tried to report the fundraiser, my fingers clumsy on the screen. The platform spat back the same message. This campaign does not violate our community guidelines. Of course it didn't. She had framed it just right. Not too dramatic, not too vague. Just enough half-truths for people to fill in the rest with their pity. She knew the game. She had always known. I slammed my mug down on the table. The ceramic cracked down the middle. I didn't even flinch. She had turned my life into her profit, and the world applauded her for it. I paced the room like a caged animal, every breath sharp, every thought spiraling. I wanted to burn it all down. I wanted to drag her name through the mud, show everyone the rot behind her curated smile. But deep down, I knew, if I lashed out now, I'd only become her content again. She'd twist my rage into more proof of her victimhood. I was trapped. And then, out of nowhere, another notification slid across the screen. A message request. It's legal? Los co. The words beneath it made me stop cold. Hey, I saw the GoFundMe. You didn't authorize that, did you? I blinked, rereading the message, hardly trusting it was real. I'm a paralegal, Colorado Bar certified. This looks like civil exploitation, possibly even wire fraud, depending on how the funds were framed. Want to talk receipts? My heart steadied. Not raced, not skipped. Steadied. For the first time in weeks, I felt the smallest flicker of something I thought I'd lost. Power. I typed one word back. Yes. The reply came instantly. Cool. Start with screen recordings, capture timestamps. Don't confront her publicly yet. Trust me. I sank onto the couch, phone clutched to my chest, tears stinging my eyes. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. Someone saw it. Someone finally saw it. Not just the humiliation, not just the performance. They saw the strategy behind it. The exploitation, the theft. I opened my camera roll and began documenting. Clip by clip, screenshot by screenshot. I captured every timestamp, every withdrawal notice, every glowing comment that praised her while erasing me. For once, I wasn't collecting evidence of my own invisibility. I was collecting evidence of hers. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I had folders of proof. And with each saved file, I felt the walls of the junk house shift. Not less broken, but less suffocating. Callista thought she had written me into her script again, the tragic sister, the backdrop for her redemption arc. But this time, I wasn't playing along. This time, I had a different role to play. The role of the one who finally says, enough. The days leading up to Callista's big event were strangely calm. For weeks, my life had been chaos. Texts, voicemails, lies, betrayal. But once I connected with Elsie, the paralegal who reached out, the storm inside me shifted. It wasn't gone. It was focused. We spent late nights on video calls, combing through screenshots, building a timeline, drafting letters. My hands shook the first time I signed my name on the documents. Elsie just smiled gently and said, "Breathe, Rowena. The paperwork does the talking now." It was a foreign kind of power. Quiet, deliberate, undeniable. Not like the screaming matches I had once imagined. Not like the fantasies of finally shouting my pain into their faces. This power was sharper, cleaner. It didn't need an audience. But an audience was exactly what it was about to get. Callista had teased her special live event for days. A Q&A with her followers. A chance to clear the air after the GoFundMe had gone viral. She promised it would be raw and unfiltered. I almost laughed when I read that. Nothing about Callista had ever been raw or unfiltered. On the day of her event, I sat at my chipped kitchen table, laptop open, phone buzzing beside me. The nerves should have been unbearable, but instead, I felt something colder, steadier, like the silence right before a storm splits the sky. Elsie's face appeared on my screen, framed by stacks of legal pads and a half-empty coffee cup. "It'll be delivered midstream," she said, her voice calm. "Right when the eyes are all on her, you don't have to say a word." I nodded, my pulse steady. I didn't need to say anything. The truth would. 10 minutes later, I opened the live feed. There she was. Callista, bathed in golden lighting, wearing muted earth tones that whispered humility, sincerity, grace. Her smile was wide, practiced, flawless. "Hi, beautiful souls," she said, voice melodic, eyes shining with false compassion. "Thank you for being here today. I know there's been some noise, but this is a space for positivity, a space for healing." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, watching. She spun her story like a spider weaving silk. She talked about helping her sister rebuild, about how sometimes negativity comes from pain we can't understand. 23. Every word dripped with manipulation, carefully designed to cast her as the saint and me as the bitter shadow. Her audience ate it up. Hearts and comments streamed across the screen. And then, halfway through a question about family values, it happened. A nervous-looking assistant stepped onto the stage, clutching a thick manila envelope. Callista's smile flickered. For the first time, the mask slipped. "What's this?" she asked, still smiling, but her eyes darted like trapped birds. The assistant whispered something, handed her the envelope. She opened it, fingers trembling just slightly. Inside, the cease and desist, the legal notice, the truth. The live chat exploded. What is that? Why does she look panicked? OMG, did something just happen? Callista's practiced grin froze, then cracked. Her voice wavered. Uh, we'll just take a short pause, beautiful souls. The cheerful background music looped awkwardly as she muttered something off mic to the assistant. Her hands shook as she shuffled the papers. And then, abruptly, the stream cut. No sign-off, no affirmations, just static. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the blank screen. And then, slowly, I smiled. It wasn't triumphant. It wasn't gloating. It was relief. Because for once, I wasn't the one silenced. She was. Within minutes, the internet lit up. Reddit threads bloomed like wildflowers. Did she just get served live? Cease and desist midstream, OMG. Screenshots or it didn't happen. Clips spread everywhere. Her frozen face, her stammer, the envelope in her shaking hands. People analyzed every twitch, every blink, every slip of control. And then the digging began. Screenshots of the fundraiser, links tying the PayPal account to her business, comments she had written about PR optics. The internet turned faster than I could have dreamed. And just as the storm swelled online, another message appeared in my inbox. Chiao Ao, President, Skyline Estates. My pulse quickened as I opened it. Hi, Rowena. We were unaware Callista Vale was using the Skyline Estates community name to solicit funds. This misrepresentation violates our ethics and emergency aid policies. We are initiating a formal review and would like your cooperation. Attached are copies of her applications citing you as a displaced homeowner needing crisis housing. Please confirm or dispute. Attached were PDFs, applications filled with half-truths, twisted details, fabricated struggles. My address. My name, my pain, repackaged as her marketing material. I scrolled through each line, my chest tightening, not with helplessness, but with clarity. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. It was fraud. For years, she had painted me as the broken one, the unstable one, the sister too fragile, too bitter, too intense to deserve love. But tonight, in front of hundreds of thousands of eyes, her mask had slipped, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who had to explain myself. She was. I closed the laptop slowly, savoring the quiet. The silence that had once been my cage now felt different. Not empty. Not suffocating, anchored. I wasn't built for pity. I was built for endurance. And she couldn't filter her way out of this one. Morning sunlight spilled through the patched windows of my $900 house, painting soft golden rectangles across the floor. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint and cut grass, a far cry from the mildew and rot that had clung to every corner when I first moved in. A month had passed since the gala. A month since Callista's mask had cracked in front of flashing cameras and the internet's merciless gaze. Her sponsors had fled. Her apologies never came. Her silence was louder than any of her curated affirmations had ever been, and somehow, none of it touched me the way I once feared it would. I brewed coffee in the small kitchen, steam curling upward like a quiet prayer. Outside, the voices of neighborhood kids drifted in, high and bright, as they chalked messages on the walkway. Their laughter carried more hope than I had realized I'd been starving for. I sipped from my mug and let the peace settle into my bones, heavier and warmer than any blanket, because this wasn't just a house anymore. It wasn't just rotting wood and patched floors. It was mine. A foundation, a beginning. That Saturday, the neighborhood hosted a small cleanup. People gathered on porches, swapping gardening tips, hauling branches, painting fences. I set out a folding table with lemonade and brownies. Strangers stopped to chat, to smile, to ask about the repairs I'd been doing. Kids scrawled bright chalk messages on the sidewalk. You matter. Stronger than you know. Welcome home. For the first time in my life, I smiled without hesitation. I didn't glance over my shoulder, waiting for the laughter to be at my expense. Around midday, as I wiped crumbs from the table, my phone buzzed. A familiar name lit the screen. Callista. I almost ignored it. I almost tossed the phone face down and let it buzz into silence. But something, curiosity, or maybe the stubborn habit of old wounds, made me look. The message was short, casual, as if nothing had ever happened. Hey, things have been rough. Any chance we could crash with you for a while? Just until we figure things out. No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. I stared at the words, letting the absurdity wash over me. The sister who had laughed at my house, the sister who had called me unstable, who had filmed my pain, who had sold my life for donations. She wanted to come back now, to use my roof the way she had always used my name. I set the phone down beside the lemonade pitcher. I didn't pace. I didn't fume. I didn't draft angry messages I would never send. Instead, I walked back inside. In the entryway, above the coat rack, hung a simple wooden frame. Inside it was a faded photo of me at 8 years old, wearing a paper crown from a forgotten school play. In the background, blurry but unmistakable, was Aunt Chorus, clapping like her life depended on it. Beneath the glass, in her small, neat handwriting, were the words, "You always had the light. A.I." I touched the frame lightly, feeling the lump rise in my throat. But no tears came this time, just gratitude, just peace. Picking my phone back up, I typed the only response that felt right. "There's no space for lies here anymore. I wish you peace." And I sent it, without hesitation. Outside, the kids laughed and shouted, drawing a crooked sun with a bright yellow chalk line. I stepped onto the porch, breathing in the cool afternoon air. The junk house I bought for $900 wasn't my burden anymore. It was my foundation. I had spent so long trying to find a seat at a table that was never meant for me, trying to earn scraps of love that were weighed and measured like prizes for whoever bowed the lowest. Not anymore. They wanted a key, but I had already built a door. And behind it, finally, was a life that belonged to me. Sometimes the hardest walls we break through are the ones built by the people who were supposed to love us most. But when you stop knocking on closed doors and build your own, you don't just find freedom, you find yourself. So I'll ask you now, listening to this, have you ever had to choose peace over family? If you have, you're not alone. Share your story below. I read every comment. And if you believe in stories of truth and survival, don't forget to subscribe. Because this is not the end. This is the beginning.